So welcome back, everyone, and welcome to our new arrivals. Some people sort of substituted, especially from some of the pharmaceutical companies. We have double hitting, so great to reach out to all of you. Yesterday, as those of you who were here yesterday, we covered some amazing themes, starting with Francois Lamontagne, on how we could embed clinical trials into clinical practice. And we heard from some international experience, as well as we heard from CIHR on how they're funding trials. And so I started to think about this together and how can we influence people who are giving grants like CIHR and of course Health Canada ultimately to accept these new types of trials. But how can we start thinking about grant forming along the lines of these type of new trials? Will it be as easy? I'm not so sure. I think we're going to have to demonstrate a lot more on how they can be successful, like in the recovery trial that we heard about from Pippa Corey yesterday. And I think that everybody wants to emulate, it seemed yesterday, the NIHR. So perhaps that will be our inspiration going forward as we work on this in the coming year in between conferences. We also heard a lot about real-world evidence from Winston Chung and Kelvin Chan and so forth, and what they're doing out west. But we have a lot of opportunities here as well with Exactus Innovation, the work that we do at the Canadian Personalized Healthcare Innovation Network, and so forth. And I think something we have to think about is how can we take this real-world evidence and from these various sources, whether it's in patient support programs or otherwise, and utilize that to reduce the uncertainty that we have from various clinical trials, especially if we're going to do it in a new format. We also heard from our panel yesterday, led by Mike Duong, and others, Henry from Roche and Alan Forster, who's now joining McGill in innovation. So a lot of innovative thinking on how we could utilize data from various different sources in order to, again, inform decision makers on what drugs could be approved or should be approved, whether at INES or at CADTH. We also touched on, of course, one of our key themes was from Sarah talking from the Clinical Trials Transformation Initiative, which is going to form a large part of our work today, on the recommendations on actually how to implement clinical research in clinical practice. What are those facilitators? What are the barriers? And we'll be working on that today in our workshop and actually seeing how we can transform the way clinical trials are done so that patients have more access to them, so that they become more diverse and there's more equity in the trials and we include more people and ultimately have better trials. And the secret reason for doing this is if we could actually demonstrate that we can do trials better here in Canada and they could be more diverse and we can have easy flow of data and sharing of this data, then that will be a great reason to invest in clinical trials in Canada. So it would be good for the economy, but most importantly, it'll be great for research and most importantly, for patients, because hopefully they'll have access to more trials. And that's something that we'll work on as well. We have a lot of Quebec networks here. We have the 3CTN here, a lot of representation from different networks. And really at the end of the day is how do we get more patients into clinical trials in Canada. We won't be talking today about navigation, but at our PACT committee, our Patient-Centered Approach to Clinical Trials Committee, this is something that's really top of mind, how to get people into clinical trials, the right clinical trials at the right time, and not just get them matched with the trial, but actually get them into the trial so that they can do better and have better outcomes. So today we're privileged to have Dr. Angie Marsh from AstraZeneca. We're coming back to Sarah Bristol-Calvert and about the facilitators and the barriers of embedding clinical trials. And then we have an incredible panel with John Marshall on the REMAP-PAP trial, CAP trial, which is again one of the inspirations for the type of work that we're doing and follows along the lines of adaptive trials. And then we're going to finish with the panel that I'm going to be in. So you all have to stay for that last panel, because I'm in it, where we'll be talking about the future of research with patients. And that's with Dr. Stephanie Michaud, Stuart Nichols, Minaj Lalo, Linda Hunter, Camille Leahy, and myself. So really looking at what they've done as well in Ottawa Hospital with the CAR-T trials and how they involve patients' engagement in that. So without further ado, I'd like to ask our wonderful facilitator, Anne-Marie, to come up. And it's not on the sign right now, but once again, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors. You've seen them on the board right in front, without whom this would not be possible. And thank you all for being here today and sharing your thoughts, working together to us for the benefit of patients. Thank you.